Good morning. It is a wonderful day to be in community for an exciting recognition of the legacy of activism and leadership here at Mildred Hailey, and the legacy and activism of housing and tenants' rights activists across the city and beyond for generations. And so today we are really here just to stand on their shoulders and to stand alongside, shoulder to shoulder, with so many who have been fighting for justice for a long time. This is dangerous, but I'm going to make a few acknowledgments of folks, but even though every single person here really is someone who deserves and we're grateful for their work. Ms. Yolanda Torres, who is president of the Mildred C. Hailey Tenant Task Force. Ms. Beverly Williams, co-chair of the Greater Boston Interfaith Organization. Mr. Lincoln Larmond, chair of the Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing Community Advisory Committee. Chief Sheila Dillon of the Office of Housing for the City of Boston. Administrator Kate Bennett of the Boston Housing Authority. Several chiefs are here as well from our administration. I know Chief of Equity and Inclusion, Mariangeli Solis-Cervera, is here. Our Executive Director of the Office of Fair Housing and Equity, Will Onuha, is here. I want to thank my colleagues in elected office who are standing with us and have pushed and led and made sure we got to this point. District City Councilor Kendra Lara. City Councilor Kenzie Bach. State Representative Nika Elugardo. And so many advocates who have given your time, effort, treasure, talent, energy to leading the affirmatively furthering fair housing work. I also want to recognize ACE, Alternatives for Community and Environment. I think I saw Dwayne earlier. The Boston Tenants Coalition, Greater Boston Legal Services, the Charles Hamilton Houston Institute for Race and Justice, Roxbury Neighborhood Council, Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, the NAACP Housing Committee. Okay. That is my thank yous. So just to ground us a little bit in how many years this effort has been running and how many people have been pushing. In 2016, these apartments were renamed after legendary tenant and housing activist Mildred C. Hailey. Miss Mildred had a dream that one day this community would be transformed. She said, "Safe, sanitary, decent housing, that is our main goal." She knew that residents needed these basics that everyone deserves, a clean place free from fear to call home. But she didn't stop there. For the community to thrive, she knew that people needed to be able to take pride in the space that they shared collectively. And so she dedicated her life to nurturing that pride, giving people a sense of ownership and the opportunity to innovate solutions that would, in Ms. Hailey's words, improve the quality of life for all. Of course, she wasn't the only champion this community has had, or even the last. For decades, a diverse coalition of resident leaders have built on this legacy of activism that Mrs. Hailey and her colleagues have established. They've continued to advocate for changes that improve the lives of their families, friends, and neighbors, and here in JP, changes driven by people, by families, changes that we are all proud of. It's the tradition that's kept alive today by the president of our tenants organization, Ms. Torres. And that brings us to why we are here today. Right after the speaking program, I will be signing an executive order reaffirming our city government's commitment to fair housing and racial equity. This order would implement the assessment of fair housing. This is a culmination of a multi-year community-led effort to identify fair housing challenges and priorities, as well as action steps to advance a fair housing agenda in Boston. The assessment is a product of many years of collaboration across our city's communities and with city government, one that builds on our legacy as the first major city in the nation to include affirmatively furthering fair housing requirements in our zoning code. And shout out to Councilor, today to be sworn in as Senator Lydia Edwards, for her leadership there. And this is a step that will serve as a starting point for all the work that's still to come. I'm also excited to announce that we will be investing $50 million for capital improvements at the Mildred C. Hailey Apartments. These funds will go toward improving plumbing and ventilation, renovating windows, kitchens, and bathrooms across 526 units of housing. The dollars will come from a few different sources, including the city's capital budget, as well as new federal funds from the American Rescue Plan Act. Fingers crossed, Boston City Council. We plan to make affordable housing a top priority when it comes to putting federal recovery funding to good use. That means preserving and improving affordable housing that already exists, as well as adding more affordable housing options for residents across the city. This investment is a significant part of that plan. And I'm looking forward to sharing more about what we're doing with advocates and our partners in government to invest in affordable housing in the weeks ahead. Today's news is a major step toward protecting current and future residents' access to dignified, affordable housing. It's an investment that speaks to our city's commitment to this community, to our ability to move forward in ensuring the long-term sustainability of these residences, and this is what it will do. Restore more than 250 housing units for low to moderate income residents, create hundreds of new units, and substantially improve the quality of life for all residents here at Mildred Hailey. Again, this is an investment that builds on generations of work that advocates and tenant leaders have done to improve the quality of life for our residents, to create better, brighter spaces we can all be proud of. And it's also an investment in our future, one that will make these homes better for our planet and for our kids and their kids to come. Not only will these renovations improve quality of life for our residents, they'll improve air quality, prevent environmental health hazards like mold and mildew, and increase energy efficiency. Housing justice is climate justice. And with this investment, we're proud to be advancing both. In the coming weeks, the Boston Housing Authority will be putting out a request for proposals for architectural and engineering services to assess the scope of on-site work. And so we'll be excited to continue partnering with this incredible coalition of resident leaders, community groups, and nonprofits that work every day to make JP a place people are proud to call home. Okay, un poco en español también para los residentes que hablan español. En el 2016, estos departamentos fueron nombrados con el nombre de la legendaria inquilina y activista de la vivienda Mildred C. Hailey. Mildred soñaba que un día esta comunidad se transformaría. Viviendas seguras, sanitarias y decentes, ese es nuestro principal objetivo, dijo. Sabía que los residentes necesitaban lo básico, un lugar limpio, sin miedo, al que llamar hogar. Pero no paró allí. Para que la comunidad prosperara, sabía que la gente tenía que poder sentirse orgullosa del espacio que compartían. Así que dedicó su vida a fomentar ese orgullo, dando a la gente un sentido de orgullo sobre sus vidas y a la oportunidad de innovar soluciones que, en palabras de Mildred, mejorarían la calidad de vida. Por supuesto, señora Hailey no fue la única campeona de esta comunidad, ni la última. Durante décadas, una coalición diversa de líderes residentes se ha basado en el legado de activismo que la señora Hailey y sus colegas establecieron. Han seguido abogando por cambios que mejoren la vida de sus familias, amigos y vecinos aquí en Jamaica Plain. Cambios impulsados por la gente de este lugar, cambios de los que todos pueden estar orgullosos. Es una tradición que hoy mantiene viva la presidenta de la Organización de Inquilinos de Mildred C. Hailey, Yolanda Torres. Y hoy firmaré una orden ejecutiva que reafirma el compromiso de nuestro gobierno municipal con la vivienda justa y la equidad racial. Esta orden aplica la evaluación de la vivienda justa. Esa es la culminación de un esfuerzo de varios años dirigido por la comunidad para identificar los retos y las prioridades en la materia de vivienda justa, así como los pasos de acción para avanzar la agenda de vivienda justa en Boston. La evaluación es el resultado de muchos años de colaboración entre las comunidades y el gobierno municipal de nuestra ciudad. Uno que se basa en nuestro legado como la primera ciudad del país en incluir los requisitos de promoción afirmativa de la vivienda justa en nuestro código de zonificación, gracias a la senadora Lydia Edwards. Por lo cual estoy muy emocionada de anunciar que vamos a invertir $50 millones en los apartamentos Mildred C. Hailey. Estos fondos se usarán para mejorar la ventilación y la renovación de ventanas, cocinas y baños y 526 unidades. El dinero procederá de varias fuentes, como el presupuesto de capital de la ciudad y nuevos fondos federales, si el Consejo Municipal dice. La vivienda asequible será una de las principales prioridades en el uso de los fondos federales que tiene la ciudad de Boston. Eso significa preservar y mejorar las viviendas asequibles que ya existen, así como agregar más opciones de vivienda asequible para nuestros residentes en toda la ciudad. Esa inversión es una parte importante de ese plan y espero compartir más información sobre lo que estamos haciendo para invertir en viviendas asequibles en las próximas semanas. La inversión de hoy es un paso importante para proteger el acceso de los residentes actuales y futuros a una vivienda digna y asequible aquí en Jamaica Plain. Es una inversión que habla de nuestro compromiso con esta comunidad. A largo plazo vamos a restaurar más de 250 viviendas para residentes con ingresos bajos o moderados, crear cientos de nuevas unidades, a la vez que se mejora socialmente la calidad de vida de todos los residentes aquí en Mildred Hailey. Es una inversión que se basa en las generaciones de trabajo que los líderes de los inquilinos han realizado para mejorar la calidad de vida de nuestros residentes, para crear espacios mejores de los que todos podamos estar orgullosos. También es una inversión en nuestro futuro, que hará de los hogares lugares mejores para las personas y el planeta y generaciones próximas. Esas renovaciones no solo mejorarán la calidad de vida de los residentes, sino que también mejorarán la calidad de aire, ayudarán a evitar los peligros para la salud del medio ambiente y aumentarán la eficiencia energética. La justicia de vivienda es la justicia climática. Y con esa inversión nos sentimos orgullosos de promover ambas. En este momento, mi placer introducir a mi amiga y colega, ¿dónde está? Councilor Kendra Lara. My pleasure now to introduce my colleague and friend on the City Council, our District Councilor, Kendra Lara.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. Wow. Today's a celebratory day. I wanted to come here and I had so much to say, and then I walked into 30 Bickford and I remembered that I met Miss Hailey when I was 17 years old in that community room right behind us. And she was sitting at the edge of the table and she had a gavel, as she did when she was presiding over our meetings. And at a very young age, Miss Hailey instilled in me what it meant to lead and to organize and to fight with a servant heart. That is the legacy that all of the tenants of Mildred Hailey and all of the organizers that are here today have continued with this fight here. And so I wanted to start off by saying congratulations to you and thank you. We're here today for you, but we're also here because of you and because you remain steadfast in your fight and in your affirmation that everyone and all of your neighbors deserve safe, healthy, and accessible homes. When we make an investment in public housing, we are making an investment in the working class people of the city. We're making an investment in the people that make our neighborhoods the vibrant communities that they are today. And my hope is that this is only the beginning of a much bigger investment into more public and social housing all across the city. Well, thank you so much. The legacy that we're continuing here today is one that has reverberated not here in Jamaica Plain only, but throughout the entire city. And when I ran to represent this seat, I talked about the legacy of the People Before Highways fight that started right here in this neighborhood. This is a decades long fight. And today I also want to end by thanking Mayor Wu, because by making this investment, she is not only being responsive to the demands and the needs of the people in this community, but she's leading with the necessary urgency to make sure that every one of our neighbors has the housing that they deserve. No le voy a hablar en español hoy porque no quiero tomar mucho tiempo. But I also want you to know that it is incredibly humbling for me as a young organizer here in JP to return to Mildred Hailey as your new district councilor. I want to remind you that we are here to serve you. Michael McMillan, who is an organizer and a tenant right here in your community, is our new director of constituent services for our office. And Alex Ponte Capellan, who is a former organizer with City Life Vida Urbana, will be our chief of staff. And I want you to know that your needs will be represented at City Hall because you are at City Hall now. So thank you to everyone who worked incredibly hard to make this happen. I'm excited to serve you, and I'm excited for what this investment means. Thank you.
Next up is Administrator Kate Bennett, who will be followed by Ms. Torres, and then I'm going to invite Rep. Nika and Councilor Kenzie up after that, too.
Thank you, Mayor. I was talking to my sister this morning. She said, "Oh my God, it's such a dismal day out." And I was like, no. This is a beautiful day. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for taking this bold and transformative step in support of not only the buildings here at Hailey, but in support of families here at Hailey. You are reshaping what is possible at this site, and we're grateful. I also want to thank Jolanda, the task force, and as folks have mentioned, you know, all of the tenant leaders that have come before and that are working so hard now at this site. This is such a cornerstone of the fabric of this community. And with your partnership, we will go forward and make these improvements. I pledge to you BHA's laser focus on getting this work done expeditiously. Thank you. To the staff at Hailey, standing behind me, there has been a tremendous effort in recent months to reshape our approach to maintenance issues at this site, and the results are paying off. I'm hearing it from residents. I can see it, and I just want to lift up your hard work in getting us to this place. Thank you. With these funds, we can finally address the root capital issues that are causing so many ongoing problems in these buildings. And $50 million is a staggering investment, but our residents deserve no less. These renovations, combined with the new housing plan with Center Street Partners, will really bring this site forward to serve generations of families, low-income families to come. I want to thank GBIO, your advocacy, and, you know, your lifting up the issues at Hailey has really helped bring us to this place. Your leadership is so appreciated, and your partnership. And there are just so many partners at this site that run deep and have a long history working day in and day out on behalf of residents here, health workers, youth workers, service providers, many city departments and agencies, our development partners. And it's just such a rich fabric of partnerships to go forward with and revitalize this site, and I just can't wait. Lastly, I just want to say something about the AFFH. It's just another incredible step forward. And, you know, this plan has kind of hovered around the 1 yard line for a little while. And kudos to Mayor Wu for just like yanking it over the finish line. You know, as soon as she got the chance, she just pulled it across. And it's a wonderful and aspirational platform from which to move forward as a city. But it was also a really unique collaboration between city agencies, D&D, BPDA, Fair Housing, BHA, community advocates, Boston Tenant Coalition, many, many others, too numerous to name, and City Council. Councilors Bach and Edwards were instrumental at times in moving this forward, and I think it just also is a great model from which we can move forward as a city in creating a vision between the community and the city to move forward with. Congrats to everyone. Thank you all.
Ms. Yolanda Torres.
Thank you. All right, good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. Thank you, Mayor Michelle Wu, the Administrator Kate Bennett, Councilor Kendra Lara, Ms. Beverly William of GBIO, and Chief Shayla Dillon for the announcements and remarks today. My name is Yolanda Torres. I'm the president of the Mildred C. Hailey Tenants Organization. Also with me, I have other members of the board, Josefina, West. Okay. So we are the official tenants organization that represent more than 750 diverse, low-income families who lives at the Mildred C. Hailey development. Children make up more than 30% of our residents, and seniors about 50%. Our residents speak many languages other than English. About 5% identify as white, non-Hispanic. Our average household income is about $20,000 for years. Through the challenge of the COVID pandemic, many of you provide our family in need with critical support and resources. Individually and through our wonderful community partners organization, including Living Safely in Jackson Square, City Life, and GBLS. We can't thank you enough. And today, we are filled with hope by Mayor Michelle Wu. Commit of $50 million to our Mildred C. Hailey development will make possible the badly needed repair to our severely distressed housing. Our development on Heath Street was first built in 1941. Since then, the Mildred C. Hailey Apartments have sheltered generations and thousands of Boston's most vulnerable families. We at the task force have had the privilege and collaboration directly with the leadership of the Boston Housing Authority. Not only Kate, but Gail, Lydia, Letitia, and Joe, to name just a few, to address the present need of families face. But after years and years of less and less federal funding, our apartment had no seriously run down and cannot support the well-being of our family. Our families, especially our children, our elderly, and our disabled residents, need safe, sanitary, quality housing in JP. The diverse and vibrant neighborhood of Boston we are proud to call home. The mayor commitment of $50 million today will go forth toward ensuring that our family can live in home. We can be healthy and successful. We thank GBIO, the Greater Boston Interfaith Organization, for directing the spotlight to the challenge our Mildred C. Hailey families face. In closing, I want to note personally my admiration and excitement for the leadership of the Mayor Wu and our new elected official, Kenda Lara, for the commitment to affordable housing as a basic human right to ensure that Boston can remain a diverse and welcoming city for all. And of course, for the year of tireless work and support of Kate Bennett and other our BHA leadership and Shayla Dillon and her team. So for all of us as the team board member, thank you very much.
State Representative Nika Elugardo.
Oh. Wow, this is exciting, yeah? I don't think we can give enough applausos to our mayor. When I first was running for office for the first time in 2018 and was walking around these grounds and meeting people, there were some abuelas and older moms that came up to me, grandmas, and said, Miss Nika, when you get to the State House, will you please tell them that we don't want to lose our housing? These are tenants of Mildred C. Hailey. And normally I'm extremely respectful towards my elders, right, elders? They know. But that really made me angry. And I said to them, I never want you to talk to me like that again. I never want you to ask me to go beg for something that is your right and that you have invested in. You have invested for decades, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. You've raised children, grandchildren. Julia Martin, over here, this building is named after her. I have a bad sense of direction. I think it's that way. You know, I think last time I talked to her, she had 91 grandchildren, greats, etc. And on your watch, has this land not become the most valuable land in the country? If you had paid a single dollar in a traditional purchase, all of that return on investment would belong to you. The public investment needs to look exactly like what Mayor Wu is showing us today and our esteemed city councilors. It is a return on the investment of its people. And so this $50 million is a down payment on an investment. Because we've been working on this long before I came onto the scene. My predecessor, Jeffrey Sanchez, got millions of dollars in a bond bill that we still need to pull out as cash because this work is not done. The $50 million is an incredible investment for a city municipality, but the Commonwealth of Massachusetts also has resources that we need to pull into this as well. I happen to know from my work with the fantastic Kate Bennett and Joel Wool, who also works with Kate, that $186 million of needed investment is still required for the rest of the units that haven't been mentioned today. I happen to know from my work with the great JPNDC and Urban Edge and community builders that another $40 million is required from the state for just the units that we've talked about today. So I'm here to be grateful and thankful and expectant, right? Because it's my job, you know, I'm a state rep, to make sure that the state shows up as well. And the reason that's important is because it takes community, city, and state to fully return on the investment. Yes, we're making an investment, but we're also returning to the community what they deserve. We've heard from Yolanda, who's a great inspiration to me, and she mentioned some of her other members like Josefina, who I've worked with. I've had the pleasure of working with some of these older ladies from before. I never got to meet some of the ones who have passed on that have been mentioned, like Mildred C. Hailey, but also Hattie Kelton, who the building is named across the street for her. This is the investment that we owe them that they made. We owe them this return. And so please continue to fight with us, because it's not just a fight for clean air, clean water, for quality of life, for good housing. It's a fight for the mindset of our people. It's a fight for the mindset that thinks if you were born in poverty caused by the system that you live in, that's your lot. That is a broken and false mindset that is being completely shattered by the elected officials standing behind me. And I'm honored to join them as we move forward, because when we move forward, we're asking a question not only of the city and the state, but of ourselves. What do our residents deserve as a return on their investment? What does reparations really mean? What it really means is that all that you've given, we're going to make sure not only you get back, but you're going to be able to build generational wealth in the future. We're going to stop this mindset that if we give you half of what you need, that is enough. If we give you a third of what you need, that is enough. We want all of what is needed here, and it is also deserved. And so I could not have a better launch pad than this team behind me, led by Mayor Wu, as I go back to the State House and see what more we can get done. Thank you.
City Councilor Kenzie Bach will close us out.
Hello, everyone. I am grateful to the mayor and to Councilor Lara for letting me slide across the district line today. This one is very personal for me. Before I was a city councilor, I organized with GBIO and learned from a lot of people here, Ms. Chamada, Beverly Williams, Fern Stanfield, Katie Cole, what it meant to do broad-based community organizing. And then I had to hang up my hat at GBIO because I went to work at the Boston Housing Authority, working in policy and planning for Kate Bennett and for the former administrator, Bill McGonigal, whose name for me also hovers over today, thinking about exactly this. How do we reposition, reinvest in our public housing for the 21st century in Boston? And there's just a couple of things I really want to say today. One of them is, we're standing in 02130. And there's been a lot of talk in the city of Boston in recent years about zip codes and wealth and sort of how we measure everything. I think it's important to note that in a zip code like 02130 and a lot of zip codes around the city, the only thing pulling the median income down from being stratospherically high is the public housing that we built in the 1940s. It is the only way that we are keeping low-income people in many of the neighborhoods of the city, including JP. And so we have to have an orientation, and this is what I'm so proud that the mayor is leading with today. We have to have an orientation that says public housing is not our past, public housing is our future, and it is literally the only key to a future that actually involves a Boston for everyone. And I just think it is so important to keep that in mind and not let that be obscured in the way that we sort of generalize about data in the city. These are the anchor communities for that whole Boston for everyone. I also think Administrator Bennett mentioned it, but I want to land on it as well as someone who sat with a lot of spreadsheets at the Housing Authority. The scale of this $50 million really is huge. The last time that the city of Boston got a major federal grant to support the rebuilding of existing public housing, it was in the Obama administration. It was over down the street at Whittier. It was a huge deal. The check was rush FedEx so that we would get it the day before the Trump administration came in. And that check, which was the last serious federal investment in public housing in the city of Boston, was for $30 million. So when we talk about $50 million today, we are talking about the city stepping up and saying, fine, we are going to prioritize this, not because we should have to replace federal investment, not because, as Rep. Elagardo said, we should have to replace state investment, but because we have no other choice, because these are such core parts of our community, and we cannot live in a world where we say, well, it's the other level of government's fault that these have declined. It is, and yet we have to figure this out. And so I think that what the mayor's shown you today is leadership about taking a first step. Absolutely, as a counselor, I am pledged to making sure that this money gets across the line in the appropriation at the city council. But I also think that we're going to need to talk about how do we expand the city's capital budget, how do we keep chasing those resources at every level, how do we get creative about making sure that these anchor communities that we are so lucky to have in Boston. Thank God that unlike so many cities in America, we built our public housing not in one corner and not far away from public transit, but actually in every neighborhood of the city. Thank God. If we don't keep that, we will lose the basis for equality and justice in Boston. So I'm just really grateful to the mayor today and everybody here and all the advocates who made this happen. And the very last thing I want to say, I meant to say it earlier, is just, I mentioned GBIO at the start. I also think our future for that all-inclusive city is a future of solidarity. And I want to emphasize that, a lot of GBIO members who are members of congregations all over the city and the region do not live in public housing. And when I was organizing with them, it was mainly around affordable home ownership, which is such an important other goal in the city. And I think what's been so inspiring about our housing politics in the city of Boston in the last few years is that I think people have recognized that if we just talk about a very small pie of housing money and we fight over whether the people who need it most are the people who might have a chance to buy an affordable home and build wealth, or the people who are living in public housing that is declining, right, or the people who, you know, might need that moderate rental. If we get trapped in that argument, all the people of Boston lose. And the way out is forward together with a real mindset of solidarity and lifting everybody up. And I just think that the coalition that is here today is a complete example of what that can look like in practice. So thank you to you all.
Okay, speaking of that coalition, I want to make sure Ms. Beverly Williams comes up to say a few words, and then Mr. Lincoln Larman.
Good morning. I'm full. I'm full with gratitude. Thank you, Mayor Wolf. Thank you so much. I'm a lifelong resident of Boston. I grew up in public housing. My mother lived in one of these buildings. Kenzie, thank you for saying that you noticed that GBIO has changed. We have refound it. We have 62 organizations. But we know that our fight is for people like me, people like other people who cannot afford affordable housing. But because of public housing, but because of me, and because of our refounding, which looks more like me, which looks more like the city of Boston. That is why we are here today. We have in our religion a song says, I come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord. Well, it takes a little bit more than leaning on the Lord. It takes us putting our hands and our feet to the pavement. It takes us leaning on administration. And I just want to thank those people who allowed us to lean with them. I want to thank the tenants that came and shared their stories, because it started with them. It started with people like me, and it continues with people like you. And so on behalf of those 62 organizations, we do want to thank Mayor Wolf especially. And we want to thank our city councilors. And we want to thank Senior Deputy Advisor Gail Livingston, Chief of Staff Joe Wood, and Tim Collins. And we especially want to thank the Boston Housing Authority Administrator, CEO, Kane Pettit. We thank you for your commitment for improving the quality of living at Mildred C. Hailey Apartments. Boston has had a deep history of housing inequality. And with so many cracks in the system, we can finally see light coming through. This is a testament to what happens when elected officials, community, agencies, and advocates collaborate together. This is what true diversity of leadership looks like. Every crack in the system is the opportunity to push through and work together and make us stronger. In GBIO, we have a closing prayer that we usually say at the end of some of our meetings. And it simply says, thank you, thank you, thank you. Help us, help us, help us. And then we put our feet and hands to the work that follows. So again, we thank you, Mayor Wolf, for rolling up your sleeves, putting on your work boots, and jumping into the work alongside us. And we will continue to serve our community with integrity and courage. So if you don't mind in joining me in that simple prayer for our mayor, our BHA team, the Mildred Hailey residents, and our city of Boston. Just join me in that simple prayer. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Help us, help us, help us. Now roll up your sleeves. Get those hands out of those gloves. Put your work boots on and continue the work. Thank you.
Mr. Lincoln Larmond of the Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing Coalition.
Thank you. This has become the norm, guys. Sorry. So, good morning, good people. It's good to be with you in fellowship today. My name is Lincoln Larmond. I'm with Boston Tenant Coalition. I'm also with the Community Advisory Committee for Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing. Try and say that like 3 times really, really fast. Before I go into my remarks, I want to take the time, and I think it's worth recognizing, and I think all the members of the CAC will agree with me, but want to recognize the fantastic role of Boston Tenant Coalition as being our anchor organization. And it's really a testament to the leadership, our leader, Kathy Brown, Executive Director. Take a bow, Kathy. You know, so much of the logistical work, particularly pre-COVID, back in 2017, we were having all these community meetings, 14 community meetings across Boston, and transcribing 2,500 surveys. Just the list goes on. So kudos, BTC. So I'm also the chair of the CAC, as I mentioned before, and the CAC is a coalition of civil rights advocates, community advocates, housing advocates, and environmental justice advocates whose commitment and passion for the principles of equity, justice, and fairness in the places where they don't often inhabit or only reside at the margins have been personally inspiring to me. Let me also recognize our City of Boston partners who have been with us through the highs and the lows, yet have persevered. Today, we celebrate this commitment and hard work for helping, celebrate their commitment and hard work for helping us to get to this place today. The assessment of fair housing is the most comprehensive fair housing policy the City of Boston has ever produced. Mayor Wu ran a campaign that promised bold leadership and real change. And I'm here to tell you that Mayor Wu delivered on the promise today, signing the executive order. I also want to say that equity is about justice and fairness. Equity is not an abstraction. It can be because the pain that people who suffer from inequities are all too real. Real change, for it to lift people up, must be systemic. It can't be at the margins. The assessment of fair housing is a first step in bringing about systemic change across institutions of government, as exemplified by the many intersectionalities that define fair housing. It is fitting that this day arrived this week after just celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday this past Monday. As many of you know, his assassination was a trigger for the Fair Housing Act of 1968. The signing of the executive order adopting the City of Boston assessment of fair housing is a testament to Mayor Wu's leadership, commitment, and vision for the City of Boston as a place where justice, civil rights, and equity do not only happen at the margins, but reign supreme. The assessment is a fulfillment of years of hard work, dedication, commitment, and perseverance of the Community Advisory Committee for Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing and our City of Boston partners. Most importantly, however, it is a testament to and an affirmation of the residents of Boston who shared their many stories and whose voices and lived experiences expertly informed the policies and goals of the AFH. This is indeed a great victory for the City of Boston, and the CAC is proud to stand with Mayor Wu on behalf of countless civic leaders and community members who have labored so long for this day. Thank you, good people. Have a great day, and please stay safe.
Okay, now I'd like to invite up everyone to crowd around, and we are going to sign this executive order with drops of joy and justice coming down on it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Again, in the coalition, everyone in place?
Kathy, where's Kathy?
I saw Kathy coming around.
Kathy, come over here, Kathy.
Kathy.
Come on, Kathy. Sorry.
What day is today? The 20th?
Today's the 20th, yes.
It is signed.
Beautiful.
Great. Okay, is it okay if I do a little scrum out here so everyone else doesn't have to wait and stand? I'll be there in 1 minute. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.